Welcome back to Simple Tech Media. Let's talk a little bit about how to create a basic presentation. Today I'm going to focus on PowerPoint, but a lot of the tips that we give today will be able to be used in various situations. You'll notice that I'm logging into my Microsoft account. If you've never done this, you would go to office.com and then you can either purchase a subscription or use a subscription. I know a lot of schools give those out, a lot of workplaces do as well. And then I'm showing you how to go through and actually download the apps, because the web version of these apps don't give you the full ability that you would want to have in order to be successful. And in my opinion, in order to not want to pull your hair out while you're trying to work through this. So I believe that the full version, the desktop version of PowerPoint is superior to the web version. And you'll see me opening this up in the web browser, and you can tell that by looking across the top of my screen. And you'll see that there are some different tabs showing the different windows that I have open for Microsoft, and then for PowerPoint, and then for the presentation. So you can see up there at the top that I'm in the web. Now, I recommend, again, going into the actual app, and I'm going to show you in a second that you can go to the button over on the right. It's called editing, and if you click on that button and go down to the bottom of the drop-down list that will show up, you can choose open in desktop, and that's how you can switch from the browser version into the desktop version. And the desktop version does give you more ability. While I'm getting this pulled up as well, I will mention that if you're using an iPad or something like that, then it's a nice tool to have, but using the presentation software on there as well, specifically PowerPoint, you won't have the full access to it that way either. So if you do have access to a desktop computer, I would recommend doing that, or a laptop, but that's the preference there. But that's the version that I'm using. Now I'm showing you over here on the left side that you can create different slides, and each slide is going to be what's showing up on the screen for your presentation at any given time. You can right click on slides and duplicate slides or delete slides, or there are buttons up there on the ribbon under home. You can go to new slide. You'll see that there are different layouts that you can choose for slides. Usually you're going to start out with a title slide, and that's what I'm starting out with here. If you have a paid version of PowerPoint, you may have access to this designer, and I love the designer that is available. You'll notice over here on the right side, it's giving me some ideas of designs that I can pick from, and you can just keep scrolling through them and see if you find something that works for you. And this is really helpful for those of us who may not be quite so creative. It'll give us the opportunity to add some design element to our presentation. Now, not all of them that are given to us are really all that great, but it is fun to look through them. Now, I just went through and typed in the word winter to show you that you can change, and now I'm changing it to pink and blue. So you can change the types of design that it's giving you based on what you type in for your title. And so I've gotten to where sometimes I'll just type in some things that I'm looking for, whether it's professional or for a certain topic. And then once I find a design that I like that goes along with that theme, I'll go back in and delete. And then just retitle it. So with each slide, there are these text boxes or placeholders, and you'll see that when I click, there's this box that pulls up and it has little circles around the corners. You can grab onto those to adjust the size of them if you need to. I don't think that you really need to though at this point. I would pick a design that looks like something that you like, so you're not having to make a lot of changes to it. If this is something that's new to you, that's what I would recommend, not worrying about changing too much. So I'm going through and I'm looking for a different style. I think I decided that I liked the pink and blue options the best, because for Simple Tech, we do use a lot of pinks and blues. So I came in here and I'm coming back to this one. And I'm gonna find one that I like. All right, so this is the one for now. And you'll notice that as I choose a style, it has changed the layout of where my title is. And then once I click on one and choose it and start editing it, the designer will give me some more options for what it thinks I might want to use. So over here on the right side, you'll see that same design given to me in multiple ways. So I'm gonna see if I can find one that I like a little bit better, and you'll see here in just a second, I will find one that I do like a little bit better. To me, sometimes choosing the design that I want to go with is the longest part. All right, I see the one that I'm going to end up using, so hopefully I pick it here very soon. There we go. And you'll notice again that it changed the font of what I was using. So let's talk about fonts for a little bit. When you are creating a presentation, you want to choose what's referred to as a sans serif font, which means it doesn't have the little tails on the letters. It's the letters are a little bit more just straight up and down. They're a little bit more blocked. And so you're going to see that I'm going to change the font here. A sans serif font is easier on your reader's eyes, especially when they're reading from a screen. Some common sans serif fonts that you might be aware of. Arial is one. You can see some of these here. This one I'm looking at, this Bond script is a sans serif font. A serifed font, one that's better for writing papers as opposed to presentations, would be something like Times New Roman. And then as you're choosing your font, you want to be careful about changing to a lot of different types of fonts within your same presentation. You want there to be cohesiveness from start to finish with your presentation, and you can find that with your fonts, you can find that with your colors, you can find that with the design, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go through this one. So I found a family of fonts there that I'm going to use. I'm using Berlin Sans FB Demi for my title. It's a little bit of a thicker font, and then I'm using Berlin Sans FB. It's the same family of fonts. You'll notice the similarity in the name there, but it's not quite so thick. So I've decided to use Berlin Sans FB Demi for my titles and headings, and then use Berlin Sans FB for everything else. And so you'll see me use that as we go through this presentation. Another thing that I want to mention is the size of font that you should use. You do not want it to be any smaller than 32 point. That's a pretty standard option there. So 32 would be the absolute smallest because you want your reader to be able to see. You want to think about your audience. So now I've inserted a new slide and I've chosen a layout that is very common with title and content. And here in the placeholder at the top, it's just a text box. It's going to allow me to type in my heading for this slide. You'll notice that I'm going to change the font because the design that I chose was using this Walbaum font, and that's not one that I wanted to keep. So I'm going to go ahead and change that, and I'm using Berlin Sans FB Demi for my title, or for my heading, to match the title from my first slide. And then you'll notice that there's this other text box down here that I can click in and then just start typing. It's automatically set up to have bullet points. And I know that right now it is very popular to not use a bullet point list in a presentation. However, this video is for people who have never done anything like this before, and I would not worry about going and doing the fanciest design that you can find on the internet. I would keep it as simple as possible, and there is nothing wrong with having a bullet point list, especially if this is something that you don't have a lot of time to put into for design and you have not learned how to do anything different. For my bullet points, a couple of things that I want to think about is making sure that I'm concise with what I'm using as far as what's going on there. You do not want to have every area of your slide full of text for your audience to read. That's going to be too much. And I recommend brainstorming and thinking through what you want to display for your audience. So you'll see here, I'm kind of thinking through. And so I just clicked in this placeholder. It's automatically putting the bullet points there for me. I'm typing out what I want and then hitting enter when I'm ready to try a new line. All right, so for this one, I'm going to focus on colors, fonts, and design. For your colors, you want to make sure that your colors go along with each other. They have good contrast, but they're not conflicting colors. And you want to make sure that when your slide goes up on the screen, your audience does not flinch because of the colors that you've chosen to use. Again, we said 32 point was the smallest, so I selected all of those bullet points at one time by holding down my left mouse button and just dragging and selecting them. And then I went up to choose the font size, made it 32 point. And then so far we have some cohesiveness here. I want to insert a picture, and so I went to insert across the top and then I chose pictures. And if you have one saved on your device, you can find one. I just chose stock images and then I typed in the type of picture that I'm looking for. And then once I click on one and choose insert, it'll insert it for me. And the nice thing, if you have access to the designer feature over there on the right side, it gave me some ideas of how I could implement this into the design. Now, when I chose the style, I liked this style because it matched my title slide. It did adjust my font a little bit, so it shrank the size of my font. And so I just needed to be aware of that and go in and select it again and just change it to the right size. When you want to check your presentation, you can start from the beginning. There are several buttons. You'll see me point out one up at the top and then one at the bottom there. It looks like a little projector screen that you can click on. F5 is the shortcut on your keyboard that you can hit. And then you can go through your presentation by clicking your mouse or clicking your arrow keys on your computer. And I would always recommend testing that out as you're building your presentation, just so that you can see if it's working the way that you want. Now, presentation software has some elements where you can add what's called an animation or transitions in your presentation to help it look a little bit more interesting. I want my bullet points to come up one at a time whenever I click either my clicker or my mouse button or the arrow keys. And so I selected the box, the text box. You can highlight the bullet points as well. And then I went up to the animations ribbon. And then you're looking for an entrance effect. They're the ones that are going to be green. And there are some basic ones that are up there at the top of the screen that you can pick from, or you can go in and choose more, like I did probably about a minute ago in the video. You can go back and see how I did that. and then it'll let you test it out so you can see what it looks like. I would be careful about having those things that are taking a lot of time to go through. You want to pick something that's pretty subtle. Now, when you add an animation, you're going to notice these little orange boxes over to the left side. If they have a 1, a 2, and a 3 next to them, and then going on until however many elements you have, that means that they're going to come in as you click your mouse. You'll see over there on the right side, I'm showing you can do with previous, so things just show up automatically. You might see something to show up after previous. I would imagine that for most people giving a live presentation, you're going to want it to be on click. So you'll see over there that those boxes now next to where it says color, font, and design, they all just have a number 1 after them. I did this on purpose to show you that if yours is looking like this, they're just going to show up together. Then I'm going to show you one more time how to go in and fix that. You really want it to be 1, 2, and 3 if you're giving this presentation and you want to go through your points yourself. So there's an animation pane up there on the upper right. You can choose these and choose start on click by clicking that little down arrow. And then now you have the control of when these show up on your slide. Now to get out of your presentation, if you hit the escape key on your keyboard, it's the key that's up in the upper left side of your device. It says ESC. That'll take you out of your presentation. Now that I have everything set on slide 2, I'm going to duplicate it. So I right-clicked on my slide 2 over there on my task pane on the left side, and then chose to duplicate. And then now it has all the font sizes, it has all the animations set, and I'm just gonna change the content. So you'll see me select words and then change. Now for your material and your presentation, you want to make sure that you're clear with your content. You want to make sure that you're concise with it. And then you want to make sure that you've proofread it, that you have correct information up there. And then if you're pulling information, maybe you have a quotation or something like that, you definitely want to make sure that you're citing. Now I want to keep this design, but I want to change this picture. So I just selected that picture over there on the right. And if you right click on it, there's an option where you can choose change picture. And I'm choosing a stock image. If I had something saved on my computer, I could have chosen from my device. And I'm going to go through and find another picture to use. If you right click on your picture that you've already formatted and just choose change picture, it'll keep the format for you. So I didn't have to do a whole lot of extra there, which is fantastic. Now I've decided that I'd like to also change my first slide. So I'm gonna go in and change that picture as well. Again, just selecting on the picture over there on the right clicking on it, choosing change picture. Then I can choose where I'm pulling it from. So I found a picture that I liked, and it's keeping that same design. The designer feature popped up, but I'm okay with the way that it was. Did want to show you that there are different layouts. If you're wanting to compare text or have multiple bulleted lists on either side of your slide, there's that layout that's there. There are several that are there under layouts. If you have a different desire, you can do that. If you insert a slide and you see these little icons on there, if you hover over those little icons that are there, there's one that looks like a little duck with a leaf. There's one that looks like a little chart. If you hover over those will tell you what will happen if you click on them. So right here, I can insert an image, I can insert a picture, I can then insert an icon, so on and so forth. So if you see those little buttons, those are in there to help you insert an element into your slide if you want to. But the ribbons across the top also give you a lot of features, so you can always go to the insert ribbon and include different elements. We're not going to get into all of that today. To delete a slide, if you click over on it over there on the left side and then hit the delete key or right click and choose delete, you can make it go away. All right, for my presentation here, now I'm in control. I am making the things move that are moving by hitting the arrow keys on my keyboard. And then I get to the end and it gets me to this slide that just says end. And it looks better if you have something else there at the end of your presentation. So you can either insert a blank slide at the end so that it doesn't have that warning up at the top, or you can duplicate your first slide. And then if you hold down your left mouse button and drag that down, you can move that down, and then that would be at the end, and that lets you know that you're at the end of your presentation. If I were to do that, I would go in and remove the animation. So I would just click on the placeholders, those text boxes, and then go up to animations and choose none. Making some adjustments to the animations on my first slide. Now as I come in, that happens automatically. I'm ready to get started. I hit my arrow key, it takes me to the next slide. Now I'm in control of moving all of these. Ready to go to this one. It's great. And then I get to the end, and instead of it going to that one that says that's the end of the presentation at the top, it just gives me my first slide again. Now we talked about animations, but let's talk a second about transitions. Transitions are how your slide moves from one slide to the next, and you can add a little bit of pizzazz with transitions. You also have the feature for notes. So down here at the bottom, you can turn on notes, and I just turned this on and then made that section a little bit wider by hovering my mouse on that line that's beneath my slide, right above the section where I'm typing at the bottom. And then you can add notes for yourself in here to let yourself, as the presenter, remember what you were planning to say. These aren't things that your audience will see. These are things that you can see. And this section can go on don't know that I would say indefinitely, but it does go on for a long time. So you can add as much content down here as you'd like. I'll give you a little behind the scenes. I paused here because I needed to look up how to spell it. I couldn't remember if Sans had an S at the end. I thought that it did, and it did, but I just wanted to double check. So you definitely want to choose a sans serif font. It does work best for your audience, and especially if you don't have design training, that is going to be your best option to go with. While we're waiting for me to finish typing all this up, I'll give you a few other tips. Make sure that you do proofread your work. Make sure that you apply capitalization, punctuation consistently throughout. You do not want everything to be in all caps. That's harsh on the eyes, and it's difficult to read words that are in all caps a lot, especially a lot of text that way. Usually headings or titles are in all caps, or they can be. And then choosing a design that fits the theme is helpful. And then making sure that your colors are contrasting. You don't want, gray font with a white background. You're not gonna be able to really see that. But you also want to be careful about having colors that clash. Also think about the room where you're presenting this in. If it is a big screen up at the top of a room, you probably can fill up the whole slide. However, if this is a screen where people's heads might get in the way, you may want to use the upper 2/3 of the slide so everybody can see everything. I'm gonna add a little bit of notes down on this page just so that you can see. I'm about to show you how you can print to help yourself with your presentation. So I'm gonna add some bullet points here and then just put a few quick little notes. Okay, so I've added those there. If you go up to the ribbon that's labeled as View, you have, ignore the Notes Master. Don't focus on that part yet. I'm just clicking through the different ribbons to show you. All right, the basic presentation tips. I am showing you that as we go from one slide to the next, there's not a whole lot happening in between the two slides. So a moment ago, I talked to you about transitions. If you go up to the transitions ribbon, you will see that you can add transitions, and this affects how one slide goes to the next slide, goes to the next slide. Again, I would pick something that's pretty subtle. This origami one where the little bird flies off, or you have this glitter where everything kind of changes, or the shred effect. It can be really distracting and really annoying. And so my tip for you is to pick something that's relatively subtle and then apply the same one to the whole presentation. This one is awful. When you have these curtains going, I think I'm about to choose the curtain one. Some of these just take so long. Look how long that is. Now you have to stand there and wait for that to go through while your audience is just staring at you. So I would pick something that, again, is pretty subtle, but you do want to have some effect there. And I'm just testing it out based on the design that I have and trying to choose one that I like. Now, if you find one that you like, but you want to change the effect in a way, there's an effect options button there, and you can change the direction that it's going if it makes sense for it to go a different direction. And then there's a button called Apply to All that'll apply that same transition to every single slide, so you don't have to go through and do it for each one. So now this is changing how my slides go from one to the next. And then the animations, that's how my text is showing up on my slide. Making a last few little tweaks to this. If I go to slideshow, I'm going to show you what this would look like if you use presenter view. So I'm showing you how to turn it on. Now I'm just using one monitor here, so there's a special shortcut that I can use to just practice what this will look like. Alt F5. This is what the presenter view looks like if your device is set up to use it. So the big screen where it says basic tips, and now it says audience, that's what the audience sees. Over on the right side where it says next animation, you can see all of the notes that I've given, and then it shows you what's coming up next. So the big part of the screen is what your audience sees. The right side of the screen just lets you know what's coming up. And then it has all your notes in there for you, which is really helpful. And then to get out of this, just like the other, you can hit the escape key to come out. You can also print a handout for yourself so that you have all of your notes. So if you go into print, Control P is the shortcut to do that, or go over to File Print. You can change it to a notes page, and then this will show you each slide and then all the notes that you had with it. This is something that would be really handy to print off before you presented so that you know what your slide's supposed to look like along with the notes that you had for it. You can also change it to an outline look, and this will show you slide by slide the different bullet points that you had. Or you can print a handout where it just shows the slides without the notes on it. A lot of different options in their print.